Welcome to Crack Movie Club, the show where we do a book club, but for movies, which are like books, but better. I'm your host, Jordan Breeding, the lucky idiot who restarted the Cracked YouTube channel, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jesse and Allie. Say hello.
Hey,
Hello.
I'm Allie. What's up?
I'm Jesse.
Yeah, good. Great. That's who they are. They are their first names. Allie, can you recap / at all explain this weird frickin' movie that Jesse picked for us?
Okay. Am I saying the title? Or are we just going to say,
must.
or am I just going to say what happens in it and let you guess?
Right. Surely they can guess based on what you're about to say.
Okay.
What film?
I mean, pretty unmistakable. In the film Perfume, the story of a murderer,
There it is.
a young woman is on the streets of Paris.
Oh, man, we're doing the whole movie.
You gotta start early.
Do the different parts.
Yeah, what year was it?
like the 1800s or something like that.
It was like 1738.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm glad you know. A young woman's on the streets of Paris. She decides that, oops, I'm having a baby right now. She shoots a baby so hard out of her vagina, and then she leaves it in this smelly alley in Paris.
Smelly Alley. That's your
what
nickname
they called me
around
in
here.
high school. The baby, because it was his first experience, was in this like putrid hellhole, develops a super smelling ability. So much so that you could even just hover something near the baby's face and he could grab it out of the air because his nose is so
Incredibly
good.
strong grip.
This
for a
baby who
baby.
is abandoned grows up to be a young man who has to work odd jobs as a destitute young man in Paris. His name is Jean-Baptiste, we said?
Yes.
Wonderful.
But his last name is Grenouille, and that's what they mostly call him, Grenouille.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry if I'm not saying that to the liking of our French listeners, but you're just going to have to
He's
accept
been dead
it.
for 200 years
Okay.
and is fictional, so we'll
I
be
wasn't talking about him. I was talking about French people who were listening, being like, "Eh, boy." But
all of our French fans, yeah,
we
sure.
could have some. He is, deeply ill-treated, but he starts apprenticing at a perfumery where he discovers he's amazing at this because of his super nose. He's able to recreate any scent. However, he becomes intoxicated by the scents of women, and it's never totally explained if it's all women or just like really beautiful women, but whatever, some women smell amazing.
It's definitely, but specifically it's busty redheads.
Yeah, that's the weird part, but we'll get into that. To make a very long story short, he begins to obsess about capturing the smell of these women that he encounters, because it's a smell that is not capturable through other natural whatever. You can't get it through patchouli, which sets him off on a ongoing journey where he kills many women and tries to capture their scent first through one method and then another method and then a cold method, and eventually he is able to distill the scent of these women, which then, spoiler alert, allows him to create the most amazing, mind-bendingly phenomenal perfume that it is actually like an aphrodisiac, but not even that. It's like it makes people like momentarily insane, so much so that he's able to evade his own execution because he puts on this perfume and like the crowd just goes fucking wild. I'm not even going to say what happens in the last moments of the movie because I feel it must be discussed. Like I feel like I can't say the words. It like needs to like, we need to like break it down. But that is essentially.
It's been 15 years? I think we don't want to spoil it until like the 20-year mark.
I don't even mean spoiler wise. I mean like, how could I possibly ascribe to words what happens? I feel like I need help.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
But that's essentially the plot of Perfume.
There's one little extra thing that happens.
What else happens?
He gets sad, and the narrator tells us he may smell good, but he will never love good.
Oh yeah.
So he pours it on his head, and they eat him.
Yeah, that's the part I was saying. I didn't know how to.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you meant the.
There's the.
Oh, okay.
There's the
genuinely
climax and the post-climax. The post-climax
wild.
is what Jordan just described, and that's not the most fucked up part.
It's
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
I couldn't tell you what the most fucked up part was.
I thought the papal
That's the
orgy
one.
was a
That's
little.
the
That
one
was
for me.
wild.
Yeah.
The orgy was crazy, but I really think them eating him was crazier.
Okay, great. So that's the movie. We're already...
It's so wild. Also, notably, he doesn't have a smell.
Yeah, we'll get to that too, because I think it actually plays narratively in a thing that I didn't notice until the very end.
Uh-huh.
All right, Jesse, why the hell did you make us watch this?
Chose...
Yeah, answer for
I
your
chose
crimes,
this movie
Jesse.
because a couple of weeks ago in a group chat, my brother couldn't shut up about this movie. He was like, he started it on a whim, and same as apparently all of us, none of us could get through it in one bout. Well, I guess Jordan did. Jordan...
No, I did stop halfway through.
Yeah, good.
I
Well,
took
right,
about an
you have
hour
to.
off. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I took mental health breaks. It's important to check in with yourself, and I was not
So
feeling
over the course
good.
of like 2 or 3 days, my brother's like texting everybody, and he's a dad too, so he's got like not a lot of free time. And for a while, he chose to use his free time watching this movie. So, but he had nothing but good reviews because he knew it was going to be a real whirlwind from the start. So, what really hooked me was when he said, "This needs to be watched." Now, this is in a group chat. He says, "I think your wives would enjoy it." Moments later, I assume he got to the climax, and he's like, "On second thought, they would hate it."
Yeah. Wait, what did he think that was likable
I
about
think
it
just
before
the
the climax?
the cinematic experience. They love worms.
Your family loves worms? All their wives?
Yes, everybody's wives love worms and dirt and fish. So that's got to be what he thought.
That must be it. I like close-ups
Oh.
of fish guts. Is this movie gonna appeal
You
to me or
betcha.
not?
What about naked, bloody, crying
Yeah.
babies amidst fish guts?
Yeah, I mean, in a movie full of crazy imagery, the imagery of the baby absolutely popping out of her womb was one of the most memorable, and I will just he ejected out of there. I will never forget that.
I must have blinked for that because I don't remember. I just remember him being slopped on the ground, already slopped on the ground. I didn't remember seeing him shoot out like an action park
It was
ride.
it was like a Christmas cracker. It was like back, and then he was like on. It was so shocking.
I'm gonna have to talk to a
I'll
doula
never
and see
forget
if that was medically accurate.
If they all
Accurate.
pop out like that.
Well, he has this thing, right, where if he doesn't get to smell what he wants to smell, he starts to die. But in this instance, he was smelling some stuff that he was okay with, so he decided to live.
Yeah, that's important too. He chose to live.
Yeah.
He was a dying, basically was thought to be a stillborn baby, and the narrator specifically says he chose to live once he started smelling like wet dogs and drunk people puking.
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, it's not that bad out of here.
I'm gonna stay alive. In that moment too, it is very strange from a storytelling standpoint, and even from a narrative standpoint, that they were like, and then they killed his mom, and it was his fault.
Yeah.
He's a baby. He hasn't had any thoughts yet. You could argue that he doesn't even have free will at this point, but he did kill his mom. Wow.
I couldn't figure out that pattern why everybody he leaves dies. But
Right.
until just now, as you say that, I realize it's like sort of a Jesus thing. He's got original sin in a way, and then later on he becomes sort of this antichrist.
There is a moment where he does a Jesus pose.
Yeah, when he
We
tucked in
all
his
see
junk
that?
and he looked in the mirror and he said, "I'd fuck me, would you fuck me?"
Well, they're putting him on the cross.
I know, there really was a part. Okay, I have to be honest, I'm Jewish. I don't know Jesus that well. He's not a friend of mine. But, I assume I know some iconography. And there was a moment in the, papal orgy scene where he, stood with his arms to the side and his, palms turned out,
Right.
and it was very Jesus-y.
Well, yeah, and he was supposed to be on a cross.
And I thought, wow, that would make me mad if I really liked Jesus. Do you know what I'm saying?
We don't scientifically, we don't know what Jesus smelled like, so that's definitely inaccurate. So,
Who knows?
Maybe that's what was going on. Cool. All right. So now we're going to start the book club part. Jesse, ask us a question. Set us up.
all right. Well, first of all, I wanted to talk about the leads because for such a batshit story, this is also a little background. This is based on a book, so it was already a really weird experience. It was a book about scent. And they decided, we have to convey scent in a visual medium. And then we decided we have to convey that whole thing in an audio medium. But anyway, weird story, but they got some all-star talent. The lead is Ben Whishaw, who I didn't realize for a long time. That's straight up Paddington Bear.
Yes, he is Paddington
And
Bear.
Q.
Unreal. NQ. Yeah. Which is just super weird because he, in the Paddington franchise, he's nothing but a voice for a teddy bear. And here, the whole character's whole thing is that he barely talks. He talks the exact bare minimum and actually was mute for a while.
Ooh, the bare minimum?
The bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So we've got Frodo Baggins Justin Long, as I kept referring to him in my head.
Okay, interesting. He has a really... He really comes at you with like a serial killer vibe, like from the start.
Yeah.
There was no part of him that I was like, he's just a little boy. Like he really has like a very scary, intense gaze through the whole movie.
Yeah, but he's skinny and handsome.
Yeah.
I was going to say my favorite thing about him, I'm going to do this for you guys visually, but nobody else will see it. Did you notice every time he walked?
Yes,
kinda like-
exactly. That felt
he has wiggly
very,
hips.
very like
Yeah.
Frodo Bagginsy. That felt like he was a hobbit. He's limping around.
He has wiggly hips for sure.
It was something.
I did manage to do just a little bit of research on the movie, despite reeling from the experience. And he had done things before this, mostly on stage, but he was like kind of plucked out of obscurity to be the lead of this movie. And the reason he was cast is because they saw him in Hamlet, which I think actually really makes sense, that like it's this like tortured young man making choices beyond himself, and it's like in a position of like insanity versus like you feel for him. So like I do really think they made the right call. I can't say that they made any more right calls, but that definitely was one of them.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about it is, did they ever want me to care or like him at all? Because if so,
Fantastic question.
they failed, I think. I did not enjoy this man, and never on his side.
I think you're supposed to hate him, but I also found myself rooting for him, but only because I wanted him to finish his collection. There's something just mentally, I see a collection being started and I need to see it finished.
Yeah, no, it's like a Pokemon appeal. It's very much like he's got to get all the women in his bottles. I need that. Yeah. Good for
I
him.
did write down the exact same thing though, Jordan, where I was like, was there ever a version of this script where we were supposed to feel for him?
Right.
A lot of times when I'm watching a movie, I wonder about what's on the cutting room floor. And it's like, obviously he has a very hard and tragic like upbringing. He's like a street urchin who's like violently beaten. And so like, you're like, well, that's not good. But there's never any moment where you like get into his head enough to like want to be on his side or want to see things his way, even in a way where like there are some movies where you're like, oh boy, that's crazy, I would never do that. But I guess I understand why this character's doing that. They take like no time to justify that. They're just sort of like, he really wants it, so he's gonna really want it. Is that cool with you? It's like, not really.
I think the book, I didn't read the book, but I read about the book, and I think it's made pretty clear there that he's just a straight up anti-hero. He's just a gross, awful nothing.
Gotcha. I mean, I feel like a counter example that does it in a way where you're constantly back and forth. I don't know if either of you have seen the show You on Netflix, but it's the character is always doing nice things. It just so happens that in his mind, it's like, well, the nicest thing for this kid with an abusive stepdad is to kill the stepdad. And you're like, well, I get it. I wouldn't do it, hopefully. But, and he definitely takes more interest and pleasure in the doing so. It's a little bit like Dexter, I guess. Dexter has that same. He's like,
Dexter had a code.
Yeah, for good reasons.
This guy has no code. There's no code here.
Yeah, there's a code, Busty.
Yeah.
And it preferably redheaded.
Yeah.
Right.
I gotta say, like, this movie uses nudity in an imparsible way. I have no idea what the decision making was. Sometimes they're so liberal with it, sometimes not at all. I really can't tell what they want me to find disgusting versus sexy.
I have a feeling the only nakedness we saw was of dead or future dead people. I think. I can't corroborate off the top of my dome.
Well, and a massive orgy.
Yeah, and the massive orgy.
Yeah, but they didn't die, but they forgot.
It was very like strange. Like when he was smelling his first woman. What a weird sentence to say. There were some shots of her arm, her this, her that, and then there was a really long, slow cleavage shot. No nudity, just cleavage. And then you saw her naked for the first time, dead. And I was like, ew, I don't think I like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I really don't have a problem with nudity in movies at all. But this really, I was like, oh God, oh, she's dead. Oh, her boobs. It really, woo. But it was shot in a way that was romantic. It really fucked me up.
So here's what I think it was. And I think this is actually probably the best part of the movie, in my opinion. I think every time you see something like that, he's smelling it. So I think it's like cleavage shot because he can smell the cleavage or whatever. Like it's because throughout the whole movie he's like sniff and it's like plums, or like sniff like hair. Like, I mean, he's not actively sniffing before every single shot, but the way that I feel like it's setting it up is every time you get one of those really impressive way too close up shots, that's what he's smelling right now, because they do it earlier in the French market where he's like coffee, fish, this janky ass dude in the corner, and it's just, I think it's just an extension of that. So when they're naked and dead, they've lost their smell, so now they're just like a sack of crap on them. Like,
interesting.
They're no longer worthy of the cinematic pans or close-ups because they're just dead husks to him, because as they make the point, he's not interested in their physicality, he's interested in the smells emanating from their bodies or whatever. And so he's not like, ooh, she's hot. He's like, ooh, she smells good, from traditionally attractive places, I suppose.
It's very, but then there's like a long extended sequence of him, like, I know he's smelling, but he's like touching her body. He's like pawing at her dead body to smell his hands. It's just a lot. It was just a lot. It was, it was just a lot. I don't know what else to say.
It was unpleasant.
Yeah. Let me, so I was going to get more into the other star-studded cast, but let's pause on that because I want to talk more about the character, because, like I said, for sure an anti-hero. He's supposed to be a weirdo and an outcast and all that, but there's still some weird stuff that he did that I don't think really even falls under like what his character is supposed to be. Namely, so he freaks out when he learns that he doesn't have a personal stink, and in fact he then he concludes that everyone thought he was weird all his life because he didn't smell. And if he didn't smell, that was the one good thing he had going for him. But he was a filthy, limpy little, like, little scrawny little freak, and everybody hated him. And for the first time he gets to meditate, he decides, oh my God, I don't smell enough.
Yeah, that's really weird.
I think that's his superpower too, right? Because he gets so close behind people so frequently.
I think that's what you were saying. Like, it was like that last realization in the movie when they flash back to the first woman.
Yeah,
it's that basically he can get by undetected because he doesn't have a smell. Although, yes, this makes sense, I guess. But if somebody broke into my house, I would hope I'd hear them their footsteps.
Yeah,
before.
He also apparently makes no noise whatsoever.
Right, that's another thing. Like, he also is superhumanly stealthy. He doesn't make a fucking sound. He's super strong, I also guess. He, like, kills with such ease and lifts these dead bodies around. Like,
he literally is grabbing women broad daylight in alleyways, like
yoink.
Like yoinking them off screen, and you're like, okay,
it happens so fast.
And then sometimes he will drag them into a field, and sometimes he'll leave them in the bed, and like there's no clear like why he chooses to go out of his way to return them somewhere, or why he's placing them where they end up, like the one in like by the gate for no reason, and the guard's like, ah!
He also seemingly never leaves footprints.
Oh yeah,
right. Pieces of clothing, anything at all.
No hair follicles that they could test DNA.
He really
off
is like superhuman. Yeah, they're like zoom in, enhance. Oh my God, it's that guy who doesn't smell.
With their 1760 forensic testing.
Yeah, Alan Rickman's like zoom in.
I do feel like It is surprising that it was happening for a long time, and they never were like, hey, I wonder if the weird dude who's always experimenting and sniffing us is maybe the one killing everyone.
Yeah, he really...
I like it.
Everybody acts suspicious of him. Like, he's not like, I don't know, Walter White living this double life where he's like a loving family man.
Yeah, he's not going undetected. He's going undetected in the least important sense that you can go undetected, and that is smell. Otherwise, he stands out, man.
Yeah. Everybody hates him. They're all like, hey, freak. And then nobody ever is like, do you think the freak who just moved to town might be killing women?
No.
Nobody. Certainly not the freak. That would be too easy.
So I also thought it was weird what a drama queen he is. Like, when he finds out that he can't capture the stink of a cat, he just decides, well, that's it for me. I'm just gonna die.
He freaks out.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
He's very Anakin Skywalker in that sense, where he's like, I want the power to do something very clearly impossible. Like in Star Wars, it's like bring people back to life. And he's like, if I can't have it, I'm mad.
I'm going to lose it.
I'm going to start killing children. I'm going to start killing women. He's like, I wanted to smell the cat. It is funny that he's like, I tried copper. I tried iron. That wasn't working. So I shoved a cat in there.
Yeah.
Still didn't work. Feels like quite an escalation.
Like in an age where they live by like humors of the body. It's interesting that his first three like elements are like copper, glass, cat.
It's the big three. You got to make those perfume cords.
I thought he was trying to recreate. This is gonna sound so weird, but like human-y type smells. Like you know
what
how
a weird thing to say.
Hey, what can I say? I kill women and I cup their breasts to smell them.
As do we all.
I just mean like we talk about like blood having an iron smell, or like sweat can sometimes have like a coppery smell. So I was like, oh, maybe he's trying things that are like human-y because he's trying to recapture a human scent. But then he threw a cat in there, and I was like, just kidding. I have no fucking clue what your rhyme or reason.
Maybe dead people smell like dead cats.
I don't know. It was so bizarre. It was like just a little bit like, has anybody ever watched Full Metal Alchemist when they're like trying to recreate what makes a human? Great. Phenomenal. Somebody listening to this will be like, oh my God.
Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah. Okay, no, but cool.
Speaking of, I don't want to hijack your thing, Jesse, but were you going to talk about Dustin Hoffman?
Oh, absolutely.
Because he sucked.
We can get to him. Let me make a quick pit stop on Alan Rickman, because all I want to say is that he crushed it, and I have no notes.
No notes.
Other than his first line, he sounded very much like Dr. Evil. I forget what he says. But
Professor Snape, too.
That's what I was going to say. The first point is mainly reserved for dunking on Dustin Hoffman.
Wow, what a performance.
He's the only character who attempts a French accent, inexplicably. They're in France. He's the only French character.
Well, he's right, but he's Italian, though. Like Baldini
you're right.
Yeah,
is
Baldini.
an Italian guy. Yeah.
I wrote down, Mamma Mia, ? Are we in France? But you're right. Oh.
Yeah, but then he's from Grasse, which is also
I don't think
French?
he's from Grasse. Grasse is where the is like the mecca for like perfumists, and that's where he sends JB.
So he spent time there.
So,
yeah.
It definitely took me like 25 minutes before he was like, you got to go grass. Grass smells great. I'm like, surely he's walking by so much grass, right? I don't understand.
I had subtitles on, which I usually don't. I would have been so lost if not. Except anytime Dustin Hoffman really like got deep in character and said anything in Italian, it would just say Italian noises.
Love it.
Which is probably true. He's probably just making up.
Yeah.
Like a fucking Mario game.
Okay, that's funny. I didn't even pick that up because I was like, I guess this is French. I can't honestly place it. It's French mixed with just like, New York, like, hey, the perfume over here.
Yeah.
And you're like, Mamma Mia.
I think he went a little too Italian American. Yeah, he's like, basta, marron. I definitely caught a marron in there. So bad. And so what
a crazy character, though. He's not, no one else in the world is behaving the way he does. No one else has a powdered face.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
he seems to exist with a different rule set. He has come out of a different.
Well, he was
world.
also so Dustin Hoffman was only there for like less than 2 weeks. They filmed his stuff and they filmed his stuff first. So and he also like basically he was like in and out. He was like, you got 2 weeks with old Dusty, so get your stuff done. So it's possible at the beginning they're like, all right, I guess we're gonna powder everyone's faces, and they realized, well, that looks fucking horrifying. Let's not do that anymore. But we can't get Dustin back to refilm this.
Yeah.
I feel like they also edited him differently. There was a lot of him going, no!
Just like straight
And then it
to
just
camera.
like, well, but it just hangs. It's like a lot of like, oh my God. Because he's only ever interacting with the silent character. So he's just like, oh, come on, don't.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, it's a cat, come on.
The producers also said like, oh yeah, we filmed it, quote, sequentially so that like you could see the relationship between the two like building naturally. And what that means is Dustin Hoffman just didn't want to meet this guy ahead of time, and he was just weird on set, and Ben Whishaw was probably weird because he was a new guy.
It was odd.
Yeah.
There were definitely like parts where he felt like he came out of like a scene in Amadeus. But like his stuff was all so funny in a way that I was like, I kind of wish the movie was funnier. Like when he's smiling in bed and then the entire house collapses.
That was
I had to pause the movie because I
moment.
was laughing so hard. And I think it was supposed to be funny. Like I think that was the intended effect. And like I was like, hey, maybe this movie should be funny. Like I think I'd have a lot more patience for what was happening if I was like also occasionally fucking hysterical.
Yeah. They go from
That was the only real laugh.
peak comedy to then like I guess the next scene is him just meditating furiously, and then you spend the rest of the movie with Professor Snape. So all comedy's out the window.
And he's giving like a naturalistic, sad, Barry Lyndon-esque performance. Like he is also in a fully different movie
Alan
than
Rickman?
everybody else.
Yeah.
Yes, like they were like, hey, this is real. You're really afraid for your daughter. You really have to take control of a court that is more obsessed with money than safety. Like you're really sane. And he was like, okay, I'm sane. And like played it so naturalistic and so real, which again is even crazier when you like see him amongst people having an orgy where you're like, how can this be the same film?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought was really interesting about him. I was like, he gave a pretty powerful performance in the I'm gonna look in your eyes as you die thing. But I was like, he really hasn't been in this movie that much. He's like the third act or whatever, and it's just interesting that it's like they've saying it like he is it's not Jean-Claude Van Damme. What am I doing? Jean Valjean. It's not the frickin' who's the cop?
Javert.
I think it's pronounced Javier.
I hate you.
It feels like it's supposed to be the culmination of like they've been tussling this whole film, but he's just like a mad dad, and I get it. And I get it, but it's like
Yeah, at the end, he just got there, really. It was a weirdly paced movie. I feel like the story didn't start until like halfway in when he like killed and
Got to Gross.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And so that's where it does feel like it was a weird time for Alan Rickman to pop in and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm like kind of the main guy. Like I'm the main guy you want to root for now."
right.
Like, okay, well I thought this movie was just about over, so you better like tug on my heartstrings pretty quick.
Speaking of Alan Rickman, that party where they did hide and seek.
Oh yeah.
They never picked a seeker unless it's just creepy older men trolling through the maze looking for young women because they're like hide and seek and they all run off. And you're like, well, somebody has to.
Oh, it's a game of Dark Garden grabby grabs.
I mean, that's what it became.
It's a game of Legends of the Hidden Temple. There are temple guards lurking around every corner.
Yeah. I just thought it was so funny. I was like, wait, come back. We didn't pick. All right, fine.
Okay, fine. I'm sure they'll be safe out there.
Well, and then the older guy's like, I guess I'm the seeker again. And you're like, well, all right.
It was also definitely strange that they were like, at a certain point, they couldn't really commit to whether or not all of the women were virgins or maybe not. Like, that was definitely a thing that they, like, posited, but then they were like, but what about the whore? And they're like, all right. So then Alan Rickman eventually is just like, listen, I think you're gonna die. And she's like, why? And he's like, because you're beautiful. Like,
You're the hottest, yeah.
that's what it came down to. Like, it wasn't
Name
even
one
like
person hotter.
Yes,
Yeah.
he literally said that. He was like, who could possibly be hotter than you, my daughter? And she was like, I guess you're right. But that was so, like, it almost set up a rule that it was like, yes, they have to be young virgins. And then all the people got to be like, oh my God, my daughter's a young virgin. But literally they were like, no, that's not the rule. You just have to be hot.
Yeah, it's just the hottest one around, yeah.
Then that's, like, so, like, weirdly subjective. And then, like, you have to imagine there's somebody out there who's, like, walking around like, oh no, I'm walking along the street by myself at night. I really hope nobody thinks I'm hot. This is a character I would have absolutely pitched in a sketch show.
I love that. That is absolutely the, like, 13th Cent character. Because by the way, audience, if you're not familiar, the whole collection aspect is that once he learns to distill the essence of a human being, which he learns that he has to kill them, although I don't think he had to kill them.
Nope.
He collects 12 cents because he's learned that any good perfume is made up of a series of 12 cents. But the ancient Egyptians posited perhaps there's a special 13th cent. So, which I think historically that 13th cent might have been people. But he goes ahead and decides to make a whole slate of 13 cents out of people. So the 13th one had to be super special. But it wasn't. She was just
had
like...
to be the hottest bitch.
Yeah, she's just kind of the hottest bitch.
You really had to find her.
But that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing that's funny. It's like it used to be cinnamon, lilac, and maybe the Egyptians threw a human in at the end. Maybe it was legend. But for him, he's like, what if I just, killed 13?
What if they were all people?
Yeah. And then progressively hotter. Like we get twins pretty early on because that's cool. People dig that. And then we escalate, through all the redheads we can find. Yeah.
I was hoping that each murder would have like represented something, anything, like one of the big time sins, or like represented like classic scents or something like that. But it wasn't. It was just like, whoever was like relatively hot, that was like very much unguarded.
And it was even like Dustin Hoffman goes through all this trouble to explain that in any good perfume, there are like a musical composition. Chords. There's the base, the heart, and the head. And that like these different scents should different scents fall into different things. Like a lemon, which is a very high, very acidic smell, would be like a heady note, because it's like very like, you would describe it as like a high smell. Whereas like patchouli is very woodsy and it's very like like round almost. So it's like that's like a bass note. So it's also weird that when he was smelling people, he wasn't even like, oh, this is a man with a very earthy, patchouli-esque thing. I'm going to kill him. It literally was just like all of these women smell good and magically fit the script, like the ascribed like notes in the chord. And they all just like happen to be hot ladies. Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that they're all hot ladies? Like it could really like none of them were guys. No guys smell good?
I do think that's a great point because it's like, it was. So there's three things you get hit with, and within those there's a chord that's supposed to be harmonious in and of itself. So to just be like, what if I just make tons of the same smell, but like all at once?
You know what makes a good song? When everyone just yells into the microphone as loud as you can.
I want 12 basses on this song. Just 12 basses.
Right.
I don't know. It would have been fun. I mean, not to say that it would have been fun to watch this, but it would have been also like fucked up if it was like, I don't know, kids, men, everybody.
I want to see more
Like,
child murder in this movie. That's a good point. I'm going to write that down.
What I'm really trying to say, if you want to quote me out of context on anything I've ever said in my life, is that I just like would have really liked to have seen more kids die in this movie. But you know what I mean? It could have been like, this person's really old. And that's like a very mature smell or whatever it is. So like, I'm going to kill this old grandma. I don't know. But it all was just like, what if they all had big boobs? And I was like, all right, I guess that smells good too.
I mean, that's...
You don't get it.
Yeah. But what he said about like not the virgin, the prostitute was the first one that he killed sort of accidentally. He was like, don't get upset. You'll smell different. something. So then you're led to believe that different emotions would have a different scent. And that's how you get into this whole like harmony kind of thing. But nope.
You have to assume that if they were not literally dead when he was waxing them up, that they would have smelled better. And like, he probably could have asked somebody. I mean, he tried with the hooker, but he surely could have found somebody else to be like, look, I know this is crazy.
And he was acting really weird.
He was. But I bet like 13 notes of cooperative consenting women probably would have been even more orgy-tastic.
This was like the original buying feet pics online. He was just like, I will pay you so much money, just let me put oil on your leg. And they're like, what do you want? And he's like, I'm serious, everything's fine, it's totally normal. I just really want to put some oil on your leg and I'm gonna like scrape it off. And they're like, okay, whatever. It's a living.
He could have, if he'd become a hairdresser, I mean, I don't know how you would shave all their head necessarily, but you know, you'd be like, oops, I'm gonna go.
Or just like a wigist. What's a wig maker called?
That's a good question.
Wig'em.
Wig'em.
Yeah.
A wig'em. Yeah, he just needs to become a wig'em, and then he's like pretty much gold.
Yeah. This movie's challenging.
It's odd.
I love the musical Sweeney Todd. I want to be able to be clear. I do not love the movie Sweeney Todd, so please don't at me. But I love the musical Sweeney Todd. But Sweeney Todd does an amazing job setting up this like slightly unbelievable Grand Guignol type story with a protagonist who is very motivated to do what he does. And his downfall is hubris, as it is with most stories where a person decides to take matters into their own hands and go off the beaten path and do some crazy shit. This was just like a man causing chaos and then he gets eaten. And I was like, I cannot make peace. I will never know peace. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what the movie wants me to feel. I don't know what the intention was. Like, what did they want me to feel when I left the movie? Like, I don't know, and I never will.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to clarify, like, what happens, right? So he makes the perfect smell, but they catch him. They arrest him. He keeps the smell, I mean,
where does he
pocket.
keep the smell? Because it can only be in his butt. Yeah.
Up his ass.
It was kind of butt plug shaped.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he gets thrown in jail. They're like, we're going to kill you. He's like, I get it. I killed a lot of people. Took a lot of good smells out of the world. And they take him to go, they're going to put him on a cross and they're going to smack him a lot. I guess he'll die eventually. But anyway, but as the guards come to him, he drops a little dibble dabble of his perfume on himself. And they're like, actually, here's my clothes. I'll do whatever you want. And he goes out there and then he puts on a handkerchief and he waves it around like a bullfighter.
Yeah, like a dainty matador.
Like a matador. And everybody is thrilled by it. One of my favorite shots is they do this long tracking shot of the smell doing the wave through the crowd. Yeah. And they had to pay 300 extras to go, oh, like all at once. And it's pretty amazing.
Do you know, but I was going to get next into the orgy anyway.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let me just explain it and then you can explain that because I do think that's really interesting too. But basically, then he does even more scent and everybody they have this huge orgy and then they get so ashamed of the huge orgy when they wake up the next day, they totally forget about it. They go find somebody else. They kill him.
There's literally a character on the Amazon Prime, Prime Video, gives you those little factoids. The character that wakes up first, her name is just Hangover Girl.
Yeah.
It's just like she wakes up just like stunned and like, oh, what have I done? And she's the first one to scamper out of there.
Well, okay, so that happens, and then he realizes this is what he's been working towards, but it's not enough. He'll never be loved. So then he walks into the Paris or something, and he dumps all of it on his head, and it's so much that people don't orgy, they literally eat him. That's it. So just in case you don't get to that part of the movie, that's like how it.
Yeah, I mean, like down, like bones and all, seemingly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like all that's left is clothes.
But see, it did answer like from the orgy right up to the end. It did answer the question of like what potency accomplishes what end. So like a little dab is enough to get like your jailers to give you their clothes instead. Putting it on a hanky and tossing it into a crowd, so that made the scent get on other people. So instead of adoring him, they all saw each other as just like, hunky chunks of sex beef and just wanted to go nuts on each
Right.
other. And then from there, they do sort of explain. They're like, well, he could have done anything. He could have, like, seduced the Pope. Apparently, there's some amount of this that would make the Pope fall in love with him. But instead, he takes the entire thing and covers himself with it, and it's just, like, beyond any emotion that any human has ever felt. And the peasants that end up eating him, like, narrate their thoughts. And one of them is just like, I love you. And then one of them is like,
Right.
an angel. So
Yeah.
this group of peasants falls in love with an angel and just spontaneously decide to eat it, which is bonkers enough that it sold it to me that, like, okay, this is such a powerful concoction that it just completely messes with the wiring of the human brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand how do I put
Movie?
this? The movie. That's what I was trying to say. No, like a lot of times in movies with like extreme scenes of violence, and I don't even necessarily mean violence as much as I mean like people pushed to the edge of reason. Usually they are a metaphor for something, or they are like trying to make some point about the base nature of humanity or something. I do not understand what this movie is telling me, if anything. Like, is it saying that like we all that love to smell? Like, is it saying that like scent is a powerful tool? What is it trying to tell me? Do you know what I'm saying?
It feels like so obviously he's a social outcast. His particular issue seems to be that he can't smell, or he doesn't smell, that is. And so he tries to take from people their smell, which he'll then apply to himself, and people will love him.
But there's
And-
too much love, and it devoured him.
And it works, which is weird. And then the narrator helpfully, inexplicably goes, "Oh, it didn't work emotionally."
Actually, no, didn't feel good at all.
Yeah, which I think to your point, it's like, I mostly hate narrators, but definitely disembodied, like not a part of the narrative at all. Narrators that
Yeah.
are just like, we don't want the character to talk a lot, and we can't think of a smart way to give him emotions or like show the things that he's going to do. So we're just going to have this dude say he felt bad. Now.
Would you have liked it if at the end the narrator had been like, and how do I know all this? And then it had like zoomed out and it was like him in heaven and it was like, well, let's just say I have it on high authority. Wink. And then the movie closed on a circle and then it was over and it said Finn.
It did start very much with like a record scratch, like, that's me. You might be wondering how I got there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I got shot out of my mother's vagina like a cannon and it's all been downhill from there.
Well, because it's that thing, right? Like, even that last thing where it's like, he could not love or be loved. It could have very easily just had him be sad face, go in the middle, dump a bunch of stuff on his head and get eaten. And you'd be like, I bet he could neither love
Nor be loved.
Nor be loved
Yeah.
because he committed suicide. But I don't know. It's hard to parcel.
The narrator also ascribed a lot of weird things that I wouldn't have thought were parsable from just like watching. Like there was one part
Right.
where the lady is selling him to like what was he, like a tanner or something?
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was like, he could smell that this man only valued you for how much you could work. And I was like, how do you smell that? How do you smell that? How do you smell that? What does that smell like?
He could
So
smell
bizarre.
his personal diary down so granularly that he could read the script therein.
That was so weird. It was like you can't discern that from the way he's treating his employees / slaves. Like you had to smell that one? Okay. Glad I was informed. It's so bizarre.
I do feel like, yeah, the narrator was just overly like, well, nobody said anything for a bit. So, like, this Tanner's not nice.
Yeah.
We're going to show it in literally 2 seconds
you'll
when he
see.
smacks you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just want you to be prepared emotionally. Not a nice Tanner.
In case you got attached to this guy.
Yeah. There's just, well, actually, let's just skip. What about smell-o-vision? I thought that was really exciting when he smelled her from across the many mountains.
yeah.
And the camera tracked her and she like kind of looked and was like, is somebody
Smelling me?
yeah.
from across the Great Plains?
It's like, man, I should have tightened my hood up a little bit.
I did really enjoy the cinematography when it was not focused on dead and or naked women.
Correct.
Yeah.
But there were and or dead fish. There's a lot of things I did not want to see, but I appreciated the way it was done.
Yeah, no, the movie's like very beautiful to look at points,
Yeah.
especially those like shots of those like big purple fields of lilac, or was it violet? I don't know.
Lavender? I think it's lavender.
Lavender. I'm gonna say every flower. But like it was really beautiful, and like I was reading something where they were saying they really wanted it to feel period appropriate. Like they really wanted it to feel like you just
Sure.
got like zapped back in time, which I think was accomplished. And they also like listed a bunch of movies that they wanted it to feel like, and it feels like all of them at certain points.
Zoolander was like the #1 movie.
And I gotta say, it really looks like Zoolander.
Yeah.
No, but they listed like Les Mis, they listed Amadeus, they listed Barry Lyndon, they listed the original like the old Beauty and the Beast. And I was like, yeah, all of those things are in this movie. They have 100% made a Pinterest board and completely hit the mark. Like they captured it.
They spent
Yeah.
so much more time and energy on the props and the costumes and the set dressing and all that than they did on, say, training Dustin Hoffman to, learn one word in Italian. Because it took like I forget what it was. It was like 14 weeks just to like study the costumes that they were going to then recreate, as opposed to
Wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely nuts, and it really you can tell it really, really works.
All right. I just want to say something. I've been watching all of the Resident Evil movies, and this only had $15 million more budget than the second Resident Evil movie that nobody saw. And it just blows my mind how movies get their budgets. The second Resident Evil movie was $45 million, and it like looks like somebody made it in their backyard. It's amazing.
Well, speaking of the budget, very interestingly, somebody went to jail because they laundered money through this movie. That's part of how they like
Incredible.
scooped up all that. It was like whatever, $60 million. And
Worth it.
weren't suspicious at all. It should have been a little more suspicious that somebody was willing to throw many millions of dollars into this project. And sure enough.
Oh, I was going to say, just if we're doing background stuff, that orgy scene, every single one of them was a dancer. Did you know that? Did you look that up?
This is how I read it, is that there were 750 extras in that scene. Only 150 of them were dancers or like had any performance experience at all. And the director was like, no, that was on purpose because, orgies are like a choreographed dance, you see. So, but what I think
I have thought that many times.
Yeah, most orgies I'm
Whenever
at.
I go to an orgy, I'm always like, you guys know what this is a lot like? A dance. And that always goes over really well with the crowd.
Whenever I'm in an orgy, I always feel like everyone else knows what they're doing and I don't.
Right, because they're dancers.
Well, they got the choreo before you did, and you didn't study up.
Well, I'm more of an improv guy, as you know. So yeah, so
freestyle.
they would all and freestyle, and so but they would stuff these like 150 dancers, performers. They would put them like up front, or if it was like an overhead shot, they'd sprinkle them around the arena, and then just like fill in the gaps with 600 local weirdos that just wanted to be in an orgy.
Obsessed.
Okay, that makes sense because I was wondering, there's that one guy who is windmilling his penis in the background. I was like, is he really a
I
dancer?
did not catch that guy.
I didn't see that either, but I will
I'm just
rewatch the
kidding.
movie for that.
No. I was just...
Oh, but this movie is so crazy. I really thought, like, when you said that, I really genuinely thought I missed
and I
something.
mean, you look at some of their faces; they're like,
It's possible.
their faces are just like wide-eyed, just like lustily, like changing expressions every half second. That whole scene, even before I learned about the extras and all that, it felt like whenever you see one of those videos at like a bar or a stadium where like a crowd spontaneously agrees to let a baby like dictate what they're doing like it's a symphony. That's what it felt like. It felt like a group of people just like feeding off of the one weirdo in the middle.
Yeah. It'd be really funny if they were just like, we rewatch it and there's like a bunch of people just like spiking the camera, not knowing what to do, never been on set before, just like fully nude, deer in the headlights. I will say though, as weird as that scene was, and as shocking as I found it, it was shot beautifully. Like there's like a long panning shot of them all exhausted post-orgy, and it's just like naked, twined bodies, and it's like really gorgeously shot. And it's like, what a waste.
What a waste. What movie would that have been better served?
I don't know. I really feel that somebody worked hard to make those shots look beautiful, and I felt nothing but confusion
Oh no, I
and
was
revulsion.
I had no confusion. I was horny.
Paddington would have been good.
I got horned up. What can I say?
So my last lingering question, I forget if we touched on this already, but like, why is it, just like in a literary sense, why does everybody that he leaves die immediately? What's the lesson? What does that serve?
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, I wrote that down because they did it 3 times, right?
It's the
It
mother,
was,
the orphanage lady.
Oh, 4, I guess. The Tanner.
Dustin.
And then it just like never happened again because he was never with anybody.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Or there was never anybody that had control over him after that point, maybe?
Yeah, it feels like a little bit like the Omen-y. Like, it feels a little bit like he's like this, like, satanic figure, and like when you're in his life, or if you try to control him or tell him what to do, like, the powers strike you down. But like, that isn't true, because like he isn't supernatural. He's just a freak.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like, I started this off by being like, did they give me some Jesus imagery, or do I misremember Jesus? But like, it did kind of feel like Antichrist-y at times. But I also, like, if I was still in college doing an English degree, I would not stake my paper on that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't have sources to back that up. Like, it all crumbles.
Yeah, I don't know. It very clearly was set up, but there was no payoff.
Yeah.
There was no.
I imagine it's something like in the book there was some really good payoff, and in the movie they're just like, well, we got to keep it because it's pretty funny.
Yeah. I actually
I don't know.
I kind of feel like this might be a really good book. I actually don't know. I have no idea what the reviews are. But as I was watching it, I was like, I think there are a lot of things that I will not buy because I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, books can be weird, books can be experimental, books don't have to totally make sense 100% because you're not picturing every single tiny little detail. Sorry, presumably. Like, most people's brains don't think completely cinematically every time you read a word. So I think you get away with a lot.
Sure.
But I just feel like there's nowhere to hide in movies unless you have like a really strong voice that's like, you know, showing that this is like sort of like an interpretive whatever. But this certainly did not go out of its way to make that claim.
So apparently the original script that was written for it, they was like stream of consciousness was a lot more narrative in that sense, or more like a novel or something. And they said, no, I don't want that. And that guy took that idea and made the diving bell and the butterfly, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah.
So that's the same. He like wrote a script for this, and the guy was like, I think it should be more structured. And he's like, okay. And then he made the diving bell and the butterfly with the same, it's obviously not the same story.
No, but that is like a memory piece, 100%, which is cool.
Yeah, I bet the book is good. I mean, so that was the other thing too, is that the guy who optioned it, so the guy who wrote it was like, the only person that could make this is Stanley Kubrick. And so he's like, only Stanley Kubrick can do it, and Stanley Kubrick was not going to do it. So he's like, no one gets to do it. And this guy paid him 10 million pounds or German Deutschmarks or whatever.
Yeah. It was euros, but they're all worthless.
Oh, it was euros. Okay. Yeah, it's not real American money. And he eventually got him to do it, and he spent 15 years trying to buy it from him. And when he eventually bought it, he had to like take out all these loans, and then he laundered a bunch of money. So
all to make this movie.
Yeah. Also, the author was the friend of the producer. Like, they were like longtime buddies. So I mean, that'd be like like me being like, hey, Jordan, man, I really like that your Brain on Cracked you just made. I'd like to make a feature film out of it. Will you give it to me for $10 million? No.
Only Stanley Kubrick. You have to bring him back.
Stanley.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but also make sure that the movie, when you make it, parts of it really look like Stanley Kubrick made it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a pretty good place to stop, because we could just talk about the nonsense forever. Although I wanted to ask Allie, is there anything else that you just briefly felt like you wanted to mention that we didn't? And if not, that's fine.
I feel like I could watch Robert De Niro wave a handkerchief around all day. That was really entertaining.
Now, Robert De Niro, I must have fallen asleep because I don't remember seeing Bob De Niro.
Wait, what do you...
Did I say the wrong person?
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman.
That's so insane. I get them confused all the time. I really mean that.
Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro?
Yes.
What? How?
I get them confused. I get them confused all the time. I don't know.
It's
I
that
don't
it's
know
that
how.
good thick like New York Italian accent they're both famous for.
Which one did I say?
Basta, basta. You said
You said Robert De Niro, taxi driver. You looking at me?
basta, Maron.
That's so. He wasn't in this movie at all.
I don't think so. I'm not aware of him.
Did you
I don't
watch?
know what's my problem.
You just have Robert De Niro waving a handkerchief in your head from something else, and you're like,
This is-
that was probably in this movie.
You know how, like, do you know how, like, you have those things that, like, the wires got crossed once and they never got uncrossed? That absolutely is the case with me and Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro.
Doesn't make any sense.
I know.
This is actually the conceit of the podcast: is we have Allie watch a different movie entirely.
And then I'm just like, I'm like, really? When did that happen in the movie? And you're like, you don't remember? And I'm like, yeah, I guess not.
I'm glad that the one thing that we hadn't covered was whether
not
was how
Robert De
much we
Niro.
enjoyed Robert De Niro waving a handkerchief. All right, last thing we're gonna do. We're gonna come up with a new title for this movie. So I've got two potential ones. I didn't have one until I looked at my notes. So the original I had was Redhead Smell Best, which I do think is just like a fun, like what does that mean kind of title. And then I just saw in my notes Utopia of Unexplained Smells, and I really that's an Academy Award winner. Stanley Kubrick's Utopia of Unexplored
Yeah.
Smells would, I mean, clean up.
How about Perfume, semicolon, ain't I a stinker? and then underneath it, a quote from a reviewer that says, De Niro's best.
Except you have to say, colon, ain't I a stinker, parentheses, no, I don't smell like anything.
Actually, don't smell like anything at all.
I have no smell. But that's the point of this movie. Please
And
watch.
then 5 stars. And then say, don't miss De Niro in this amazing feature inscribed to my name.
Now that's a great clickbaity way to get somebody to really pay attention to a whole movie. Just be
Yeah, like, where was Robert De
Don't
Niro?
miss Robert De Niro.
You won't believe what Robert De Niro does.
He disappears into the role.
All right, so let me hit you guys with my title. Ben Whishaw has the gift of sniff.
Oh, that's really good.
The gift of sniff.
It does feel like
Excellent.
he needs like a dog sidekick. Well, which I guess he kind of does have a dog sidekick for a little while.
Yes.
He does. Oh, that was something. How come the dog was like, oh, I saw you murder what's her face, but like you kind of smell like
Yeah.
her, so we're good. I can't believe he wasn't like yip
Him.
friggin'
That was
murderer.
him.
He's just like
Yeah. It definitely
Yeah.
says that dogs
And
are
then
stupid
later, like-
and that cats are good smelling.
Cats have
Worth
a stink.
smelling, at a
Yeah,
minimum.
worth collecting.
I actually think my cat smells amazing. I've got to be honest.
Oh, you'll have to send us a jar of.
well
Yeah, I will.
Cat
I'll put him in some
hair.
hot oil and see how you
of
feel.
your cat. Yeah, rub some animal fat and just
Ugh.
I didn't really understand how it worked, but it was unpleasant to watch the process.
I would say unpleasant to watch could also be the title of the movie.
Just the title of this. Would you like to watch Unpleasant to Watch with me? I don't know. It's got Robert De
Yeah,
Niro.
Robert De Niro's in it.
That's more of a second date kind of thing.
Can you imagine? Because you know there are people out there. You know there are people who went to go see this movie on a first date.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you if it's like, okay, Alan Rickman and I almost said Dennis Hopper.
So many people are in this movie.
It's amazing.
Oh man, yeah, I could see getting tricked into taking a date on one of these.
I mean, it made a decent amount of money, like 150
Do you think
or something
people were
million.
mad?
So like,
If I saw this
Well,
movie
I
for
mean-
money, I'd be mad.
You know what though? So among other people, Roger Ebert went to bat hard for this movie, and I think sort of the excuse is that, like, I think it was this one that it sort of like got caught in the Christmas rush, quote unquote, and there was like I don't know if it was like a Harry Potter movie or something that came out at the same time. So people who stan this movie are like, oh no, it would have done better if it was released at a different time of the year.
Huh.
So some people really, really dig this thing.
I gotta be honest, I would love to hear why somebody loves it. like unironically
Well,
loves it.
Let me give you a quote from Ebert, just because I think that's a good. You might not know this. He's actually really good at summing up movies. Why you should watch
And
him.
what is his? What does he do? Like, what's his trade?
He's dead.
He's like a baseball. Oh, he's dead. So first of all, Jordan did mention there should be a lot of sniffs in this podcast. Ebert said the audiobook read by Sean Barrett is the best audio performance I've ever heard. He snuffles and sniffles his way to greatness.
Wow.
Incredible. But then he also says, from the audience, it requires a brave curiosity about the peculiarity of obsession, which I agree with because I liked it, and I'm a brave man, and you guys are not brave.
Uh-huh.
I liked it more as it went. I think it just immediately assaults you with just dead-looking babies and fish and stuff, and it really was off-putting. And then I never liked him, but I started to appreciate the kind of weirdness of it by the end and the cinematography and stuff. But I didn't like it. I didn't have fun. I
didn't have fun.
I came to start watching it like I watch certain terrible Halloween movies. I think this might be in my yearly like Halloween rotation now. It has bizarrely a lot in common with Hubie Halloween. If you haven't watched it yet, give it a watch. And then
should that be our next film?
Well, yes, definitely. If you guys don't do it, it's going to be my next one.
Well, this podcast is going off the rails.
Yeah. So how many boobs do you see in Hubie Halloween?
I don't think any boobs.
Then that's a no-go for me.
I don't want to see it. Yeah. How many are sniffed and pawed?
Okay, not a lot of sniffing or pawing, but there's other stuff.
Yeah, sure. Great. So here's the part in where I would say what movie we're going to watch next week, but I haven't picked one because this isn't real. I mean, maybe it's real if it does well.
Halloween.
If it does well, we could watch Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Oh,
which
I
is...
love that movie. I would love to
good.
do that.
I was deeply obsessed with that movie in 8th grade. For the longest time, I was like, this is my favorite movie. This is where cinema has peaked. This is the funniest thing that's ever been made. And I know for a fact, because I can see many of the scenes in my head, it's very troublesome and problematic.
It is. It's a movie that, like, upon further a current day rewatch, there's some hard stuff to get through, but very obviously has influenced comedy a ton going forward. Wasn't it like 1999?
Yeah, something like that. It had like
early.
Really young Denise Richards, Kirsten Dunst, Kirstie Alley, but she wasn't young per se. But anyway. We'll pretend that that's what I'm suggesting, and maybe we will do that. I don't know. Allie, where can we find you? Not here.
Okay. You can smell me out on Twitter.
Oh.
If you're trying to smell my curly red hair, you can find me on Twitter at Miss Alice Nutting, MSALICENUTTING. Do you hear that loud honk that happened right as I was saying that?
Yeah.
Let's leave that in. It was very, very melodic.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll fix that in post. Same thing on Instagram, all that other stuff. If you happen to live in and or around New York City, I do musical improv with a team called Rumple Teaser. We do shows at Asylum, which is a theater here in New York. You can look that up on Twitter, too. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Good. ...
Exclamation point.
You won't believe what happens next. Jesse, where can we find you?
You can, smell me on Twitter at Eisemann. That's probably, I'm not going to spell, it's probably written somewhere. And watch my show on the Cracked YouTube channel, Cannonball. It's great. You'll like it. Or you'll hate it. I don't care. I just need your engagement.
Yeah. If you hate it, make sure you watch all the ads for extra rage. And I'm on Twitter at _J_breeding. And if you watch anything on the Cracked YouTube channel, I probably have had my grubby fingers in it somewhere. So,
Jordan,
anyway.
I love your work on Cannonball.
Yeah, I done some stuff.
He has, yeah.
I wrote some stuff.
Jesse, your work has been fine.
Subpar. Yeah.
Yeah. No, totally. I agree.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be mean to you on the air. People don't know we have a playfully hateful relationship.
Well, they do now that you've stated it explicitly. All right. That's it. I'm ending it.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.